Hey there, gang. So, I didn't initially plan on making this video. I've actually been in the process of a much longer video project that y'all will hopefully see sometime in the relative near future. It pertains to what the developers have told us about DBD, High MMR, and things of that nature, but I'm going to save that for when the time comes. But we are going to be somewhat discussing High MMR to some degree, right? Because the focus on today's video is going to be Momoseventh's near 2000 Blight Winstreak. A lot of people are probably wondering how a player can even get 2000 wins on a killer in a row. I've seen plenty of discussions about how Blight is overpowered. I'm going to be explaining how that's not the case, and if it genuinely is so confusing to you how this is even possible, you should be walking away with the end of the video at least understanding why that makes sense, even if you still don't like being on the receiving end of Momo's Blight in your matches, right? But that's not the only thing we're going to be talking about too. We are also going to be talking about the specific manner in which these win streaks were lost. Not just the most recent one, but also the last one. I have some thoughts on the most recent one too that aren't nearly as, one might say, foundational as the previous loss before that. I believe it was at 1947, but I digress. We'll get into the specifics when we get to that, right? But because of what happened in that previous loss, I feel like there's a lot to take away from that, which builds onto what happened last night. And again, y'all, I have insider information. I want to be very, very explicit. This is coming from a source that is pretty damn in proximity to that situation. And I'll just, in fact, y'all, I'm gonna just come out and say it. I'm the insider. I'm going to be standing on business today on some things that I heard that transpired regarding this win streak. And, like I said, when it time comes, we'll be getting to that. But there are multiple things, like I said, we are going to be talking about. So first things first, let's talk about how is it that a near 2000 win streak on Blight is possible and even healthy for the game, right? Why is it that behaviors shouldn't just nerf Blight? What a lot of people don't get is there's a beyond qualifiable skill difference between Momoseventh, specifically the player, right? We're not talking about Blight. Momoseventh, the player, and the grand majority of every other person he's going to get matched up against in High MMR. And let me be very clear on this. The skill difference is genuinely so extreme that I can't actually put into words specifically how much better he is than the majority of the player base in High MMR. It's like a grain of sand next to a mountain. We are talking story-based fantasy anime levels of power differences. It is, and that's not hyperbole. It's multiple levels of exponential, okay? Momoseventh's win streak has only ever gotten so high for this reason alone. Does the strength of Blight obviously play some pretty large factor, you could say, right? In the sense that could he get 2,000 wins on Clown? Probably not. But at the same time, when you look at Momoseventh, the player, that is how you see a streak with 2,000 wins. It's not just Blight. And I challenge anyone else who disagrees, right? This is one of those things where if you disagree, feel free to play Blight yourself. There's a reason why he is the only player up to this point that has a streak that is that high. Momoseventh alone has even admitted this himself on multiple occasions, right? Like, if you take survivors that are of his caliber and skill level and you put him against these survivors back to back to back to back, which in essence is to say, if there was a top 0.1 percentile queue for DDD, would Momoseventh be able to get 2,000 wins in a row? No, he probably wouldn't even be able to get 50. Honestly. And I think I've even heard him say in the past he wouldn't even be able to get 10 wins, right? Like, that's what y'all need to realize when it comes to, respectfully, right, how bad a lot of these players are by comparison. There's just no shot that they have a chance of beating him, and it makes all the most sense how he's able to get such a large streak. So continuing, this is also why when he did lose the streak, right, he lost the match with 0 kills and only a few hook stages. Blight's not overpowered. when you look at the rule sets in a comp organized setting, survivors do have some pretty significant restrictions on them, right? You look at public matches, there are no restrictions. Survivors can take everything in the kitchen sink. And that's why they brought double shoulder the burden with brand new part, right? I believe they may or may not have had reassurance, etc. All of these things are normally banned in an organized setting against Blight. And that is, again, major contrast and difference when you take survivors within that very same top level bracket. Blight as a killer is not overpowered. And when you consider the match, the outcome of the match lost, if anything, more could actually be said about the objective strength of the survivors, especially if you, as we said, when you consider that they're on his skill level. This is also where the balance talk bears the most weight, right? Because again, let's talk about it from this perspective. We are talking about somebody who is otherwise able to win 2,000 wins in a row on Blight. A lot of the matches, there are no competition for him in the sense that he is killing every survivor at 4 to 5 gens remaining. His chases are probably 20 seconds on average at best, right? Like, we're talking survivors don't have a chance to really do anything, let alone stop themselves from being slugged. When you go from a consistent outcome of matches that play out like that on his end, right? And then he goes up against a team of survivors where he's only getting a few hook stages and no kills. It goes to say exactly how much the skill disparity, right, between him and survivors really does play when it comes to how he's able to get this streak. So what we're going to do next is I'm going to explain specifically how a high MMR system can allow Momoseventh to achieve near 2,000 win streak attempts on multiple tries back to back. Because remember, right, the last streak, I think, when he got to like 1947 wins, it wasn't too long after that, I think, where he got on this streak and again almost reached 2,000 wins. It just takes a long time to get 2,000 wins, y'all. I mean, that's one of the reasons why, too, I can't imagine trying, because when you think about how consistent you have to be over 2,000 matches and how much time that takes and how a single slip up sets you back, y'all, that takes, there's a lot of credit to be had there, right? But, so far, going back to what I was saying, the only times he has lost this win streak before 2,000 wins was due to deliberate stream snipers. And that much I am very confident on. We're talking about there is zero doubt in my mind. And I can understand why some people may not feel that way, but, I have insider information, right? So going forward, recently, behavior has told us for the first time what high MMR actually means. How time flies, it's already almost April. Let's take a moment to celebrate the changing of seasons with a look at some stats from the past 6 months. Please note that high MMR in these stats refer to those with an MMR rating of 1,800 or higher, which counts for approximately 18% of the player base at the time of pulling these numbers. Now, what I really like about this is, for one thing, it tells us not everybody reaches high MMR. That was a myth that is very clearly debunked now, right? It's not as if you play, what was it the shit that people were saying? You play like 5 or 10 matches of DBD, now you're high MMR? That's bullshit. Very evidently, right? Because if only the top 18% of players are in this high MMR bracket of matchmaking, then that means you've got 82% of people that play this game that aren't, right? And what's actually kind of funny about that is we very clearly see a lot of people don't know which MMR bracket that they're in. So when you consider this top 18%, what exactly does that mean? Some people might think that being in the top 18% is rather exclusive and that it's a very significant feat and that they're really, really good at the game in a sense. And, yeah, while you're better than 82%, being in the top 18%, especially if you're in the bottom of the top 18%, when you take that skill level and compare it to the very, very top end, we're talking the 0.1%, we're talking Momoseventh, right? This is where I get the whole grain of sand versus a mountain. You are never in this, you're not even in the same fucking reality, right? You're not on the same plane. So that is why I say the exclusivity matters very, very little. And what matters the most is skill disparity, which is why, again, so many survivors get absolutely and completely stomped by Momoseventh without the slightest chance of winning. because high MMR allows for so much skill disparity between the top and the low end, right? We're talking the bottom 18 of the top 18% versus the top 0.1%, right? Once you're at the very top, and I mean the very top, it's logically impractical that you will ever lose. And I want to put emphasis on that. Ever lose. So let's kind of visualize this, right? Like, let's kind of look at this graph here. This graph above that y'all see is taken from Deadlock, but this is what's called the ranked pyramid. It is something that persists across multiple games. This was something that I saw when I played League of Legends 13 years ago. What the ranked pyramid is meant to showcase is where the entirety of a game's player base lies on a spectrum of skill level, right? So let's say from bronze to silver to gold to plat to diamond to challenger, in the sense of where I understand it best in League of Legends. The top 0.1% was known as challenger. So kind of henceforth, we're going to kind of refer to it that way, right? Momoseventh is in what is known as the challenger level bracket. If you are in the bottom of the top 18%, you were basically, and this is something I knew from experience, y'all. I was mid to upper level gold when I played League of Legends 13 years ago. I was around the top 18% of the player base. And this is something that even recently, I believe I looked at the League of Legends stats from this season. I looked at some site, and it was like 15 or something percent. The numbers vary only slightly, is what I'm trying to say. So if we take this metric and we apply it, right, because it has been consistent across other games, if we take it and we apply it to DBD, and behavior says the high MMR bracket is the top 18%, then that means you've got upper mid-level gold players going against fucking Momoseventh. Really, really think about that. We're talking upper mid gold players versus challenger. Now, I don't know which of my viewers have a League of Legends background, but if you take gold level players and you put them against a challenger level player, they should never lose that game. In fact, I go as far as to say they can probably take on 2 to 3 people on the team just simply by themselves. If you understand how League of Legends works, it's got 3 lanes where you have a couple teammates in each lane that is meant to verse someone else on the enemy team, right? And if you lose to someone else, you end up stronger and you can overpower everyone else in the other lanes, right? Well, someone who is challenger can be on a losing team in every other faculty, but they can still play well enough within their own ability that they can win the match by just simply capitalizing on everyone else's mistakes, by simply beating them in micro, and they will still win their own games. Because again, exponential level difference of understanding, micro skill level, macro, right? There is no grain of sand mountain. There is no way I can qualify it for you guys in words, okay? So challenger, top 0.1%. Diamond usually makes up 1 to 2% of the player base, right? So put into perspective again where Momoseventh is, the 0.1%. He is in the top 5% of the top the top 1 to 2%. That is, even when it comes to Diamond, right? Compared to them, with how small that they are, that is how much better he is even than those players. And that is kind of why, as you look on the spectrum, what do y'all notice about this graph, right? Do y'all notice that there's a lot more players on the left than the right? And the reason for that is because a lot of people, what they have most in common when they're more casual or lesser skilled is what they don't know. When you get better at a video game and you improve in rank, what you start to have in common is what you do know. But that's the point. It's more difficult to know something than to not know something, right? Ignorance is bliss. Ignorance is fucking easy. So that is why this side of the graph is much smaller. You have this pyramid that leads up, but it's a slanted pyramid, right? Because there's not as many players in the higher end of the on the higher side of the pyramid. So what I want to do next is I've got a couple of video examples that I have used in my past videos, right? I think when I was talking about patch 9.2 and like the tunneling and camping slugging changes, etc., I used both of these videos. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna review them again. I know his name's Daigo this time, gang. Daigo Umehara. I hope I pronounced it right this time, gang. Daigo, though, okay? So, first things first is clip on the left for people that don't know about Street Fighter. Street Fighter is a fighting game, and the specific context behind this clip, right, is this was a tournament, I believe, in North America. Y'all, I'm sorry, I'm speaking off the cuff here, so please don't be like, well, you know, it was this and this and this. Why didn't it? Okay, gang? This was a very prominent North American tournament. And what you have is you have Justin, who is playing this female character, versus Daigo, who is playing the male character with the karate outfit. And Daigo is reduced to probably about 0.5% of his health. And the way this game works is that you can't simply block a move to not take damage. When characters use certain moves, even if you block the attack, you will still take damage, which means due to his health, right, he has to do what's called a perfect parry. It is within a frame, a time frame that is so small, I think it's like 0.10 to 0.2 seconds. I don't know the specifics, please don't y'all crucify me over this shit. But the point is that in order to win the match with everything against him and only able to rely on perfect parrying, he perfect parried 15 consecutive blows, I believe that it was, and then from that, he finished off his opponent in a single combo. And this was his only way of realistically turning the match around and win. But I just wanted to give you all this this preemptive context, because I know for a lot of people, it's really not going to make too much sense here. And that's why the reason why you see everyone standing up and freaking out is that while they knew that perfect parrying Chun-Li's 15-hit super arts combo was technically possible, they didn't think they'd ever see it with their own eyes, let alone in an intense moment like this, right? Where adrenaline's pumping, where that can account for not only the level of precision that you need, but also it could interfere with your nerves and also be how you miss the parry, right? Because it has to be 15 perfect parries. 15, right? You can do 13 perfect parries, you miss the 14th, GG's. You know, you lose the tournament, right? He hit 15 perfect parries in a row. He properly, with the perfect frame data, countered it into a jump attack while sequencing it into a combo. That's how he won the tournament. That's why everyone's freaking the hell out. That's why to date, to my understanding, like for a lot of people, this remains the greatest moment in fighting game history. Now, going from fighting games, let's talk about League of Legends. That's why I also, just like with this, chose to use this example, not just as well because I also played League of Legends and I have a bit of a League of Legends background. What y'all are going to see is an excerpt from two Korean teams, which were considered some of the best teams in all of the world. And one of them in particular, SKT1, has this one player named Faker. And Faker is considered by many probably the very best League of Legends player in the world. The very best. And this clip will probably prove it. It was 13 years ago, but when you think about it, if that was 13 years ago, imagine how much better he is today. And what happened is he's playing against this other team, KT Bullets, and their player of the same role is using the exact same character that Faker is. So they are going head to head in a 1v1 battle against each other, right? A fight where they both are using the exact same abilities, and winning came down to being the better mechanical player here, right? Faker outperformed Ryu, and the thing is, he didn't just outperform him. It wasn't like, oh, it was a close fight. It wasn't close at all. It might have been close in the sense that y'all are going to see his health was very, very little, But if the specific manner in which the fight took place, right, environment-wise was different, to be specific, if he wasn't trying to disengage from the tower that was shooting him while Ryu was attacking him, Faker would have probably killed him with 60% HP remaining.
Right. I'm like, even though I only have a man on the floor, I think he's in the bed. Oh, Faker maybe in trouble here. Deathmark tries to clean it up for Ryu. Oh, look at the cleanse, look at the moves. Faker, what was that? Faker with a huge play.
Oh man, y'all, that is the face of disappointment. And that right there, that's Ryu, by the way, that's not Faker. Literally just having to soak in just the utter and complete devastation he was on the receiving end. The crowd going wild because of just how brutally dominated he was. And the thing is, there's obviously a lot of respect between them, but you gotta admit, when the stakes are this high, it had to suck being on his end, right? But again, these are both top 0.1% players, okay? The way that Ryu got folded, bent, and broken as a top 0.1% player is crazy. It is... So again, imagine if Ryu was just some random upper mid-level gold player. No fucking chance in hell that they're gonna have a chance of beating Faker. That's what I'm trying to say here. Momoseventh, when it comes to, with all respect, when it comes to DBD, he is in a way DBD's Faker. He is DBD's Daigo Umehara. He is DBD's Justin Wong for Blight. And when it comes to, right, because Blight has the agency to let skill disparity put itself on display like this, that is how he's able to get 2,000 wins in a row. So, oh, this one's going to actually be funny, right? I said we were going to talk about Justin Wong in just a minute. Well, the time has come. So, if you want to see what it's like if you were to take Justin Wong, right, the person who got perfect parried 15 times in a row, what it would probably be like if he was put against an upper mid-level gold player, well, this is probably what it would look like, y'all.
You just go easy on me.
Welcome to
I'm new to the game.
Welcome to the real world! Welcome to the real world!
Okay, that's a cheat move. That's a cheat move.
Welcome to the real world! Time to learn! You're gonna learn today!
Move right there. That, ladies and gentlemen, is a cheat move.
Round 2, fight.
You're gonna learn today!
No, you're not. You're using a cheat move. No, you're using a cheat move. No, you're cheating.
You're gonna learn! This is the real world! You learn it early, son!
That's all you ever do in your house? I'm done playing now.
Finish him.
You're a freaking jerk. All you keep doing is that. That's freaking not fair. That's all you're gonna do.
Jax wins. Flawless
How is that?
victory.
Oh my gosh, I'm sorry, y'all. I'm sorry, but when the kid said, "Is this all you ever do in your house?" Oh, that's so fucking funny. And here's the thing. DBD comp players, that is all a lot of them do. Literally, all a lot of them do. They go into 1v1s and they practice their chase. They do scrims. And they may or may not do some pubs, but that's all they fucking do. So when you see this kid going against Justin Wong just spamming rockets, and he's saying, "Is this all you ever do?" It's funny in the sense, how would you relate it to DVD, right? But the reality here is Justin Wong obviously doesn't just spam rockets. He knows how to play these characters' kits. But he was just totally taking the piss, and he was just fucking with this 8-year-old kid because the skill disparity between Justin Wong and this 8-year-old child was so ridiculous he didn't have to do anything but spam rockets. But the thing is, I guarantee you, if this kid actually was an upper mid-level gold player, knew how to do a couple of punches, you're going to start seeing Justin Wong corner camping him with 40% combos. He's going to meter burn him into everything. He's going to hit him with 50-50s that the dude's not going to see coming. He's probably going to walk away with a perfect flawless win because he's going to actually just start partially trying, right? This is not him trying. This is him literally, he is laughing the whole fucking time, spamming a move that is so easily counterable. Well, I don't want to say so easily countable, right? Zoning is its whole other, thing, but I digress, right? The point being, though, is this kid was in no depth to do anything about it, right? So that's all he chose to do. And what's funny is when you look at what a lot of upper mid-level gold players are capable of DBD-wise, and you compare it to someone like Momoseventh in the top 0.1% percentile, it's funny how you look at the complaints about camping and slugging and tunneling, and it really does almost sound like, in a fighting game sense, right? They're the kid on the receiving end of the rocket spam. Oh, this is so cheap. You're using a cheap move. You're using cheap tactics. Well, y'all, if the tactics were so cheap and broken, why is it that when he lost the streak, he lost it with 0 kills and only a few hook states? Gee, oh my, maybe the skill disparity played a part in that, right? Maybe the reason he got to 2,000 wins is because a lot of the players, with all respect, fucking sucked by comparison, right? Again, I say with all respect, it's okay to not be good at a video game. It's okay to be at the bottom of the 18th percentile, right? But don't put yourself in the same league with this person who's in that top 0.1%, right? He is so much better than you could ever conceive of. And this isn't glazing, y'all. This is literally just calling facts for what they fucking are. And if you think they're not, right? Again, you think it really is Blight? Do it yourself, right? So we'll again kind of wrap in with the full circle there in just a minute. But again, right? Being at the bottom of the top 18%, you are essentially of a child with child capability compared to the top 0.1%. And again, right, summarizing the rest of the slide, that was why when he was sniped, I want to be clear about that, by the way, I do genuinely, I am in the no reasonable doubt category of he was sniped. The match was lost so decisively. No kills, only a few hook states. Oh, now this one's even better. If you like the last two. I was thinking when I was putting this whole video together and putting together this presentation, this moment from Dragon Ball Z came to mind, and I actually thought it was so perfect that I had to include it. So without saying anything, I'm just gonna kind of sit here and I'm gonna let y'all just kind of soak this in.
Why isn't Goku at Super Saiyan Blue? I hope he doesn't think Jiren's beneath him.
I assure you he doesn't. It's just the opposite, sir. Goku's probing around the edges, testing Jiren's power and his own power as well.
Start at full strength.
Goku's a martial artist, and when you're at the top level like him, before you compete all out, you want to see the scope of your opponent's power, understand the way he reacts, and establish what your own strengths are too. Then you'll use your power the best possible way.
What if Jiren doesn't care about that and makes a cheap shot to win?
Use those eyes, Tien. Haven't you noticed how Jiren's been watching Goku? He won't want to end this battle until he's seen Goku at his maximum power.
I'm sure they both see this as a chance to test their strength and push themselves to new heights.
That's right.
No matter the time of the universe, martial artists are all wired the same way.
Come on, Goku, you got this! He moved. All right. Keep it up, Goku!
What's it gonna take to get you into high gear? Maybe this will do it.
That was so good. So part of why I really like this, right? I know y'all, it might seem a little bit corny to some people, but it really makes a whole lot of sense. If you look at from the base form to Super Saiyan 2, Super Saiyan God, which is the red hair, a lot of people think because they're at high MMR, they're in this top 18%, they think they're Super Saiyan God. They think they're probably Super Saiyan Blue. Y'all, they're fucking base form, right? They can't even break the barrier. You know, some of them, they, at best, it's like they're landing blows, but the blows don't matter. And even for some players that have a decent amount of experience, right? It's like he has to respond to what they're doing in a conscious manner, but you're still not going to win. It's still not even close. He's blocking it with the palm of his hand. And, you know, I don't know, for one thing, if you've ever seen someone block like this, that fucking hurts, y'all. You don't want to block like this. Blocking in this manner is complete and utter disrespect. So it's like, yes, he's consciously responding to it, but you're not actually making him try. And that's why, too, you know, when you hear Goku say, what's it gonna take to get you into high gear? I really think that applies here, because the grand majority of survivors that Momoseventh goes against, they don't ever get him into high gear. Like I said, y'all, they're not even breaking the fucking barrier, right? Being in the top 18% really doesn't matter when you're against the top 0.1%. Now, continuing, if Momoseventh only ever played against mid-gold players, y'all, I'm going to go out on a limb and I'm going to say I think the streak would reach 10,000 wins. We're talking about no stream snipers, no comp players in the queue, right? We're talking in a mythical setting, because this mythical setting in some sense does apply to the grand majority of the matches that Momoseventh plays. If he was in a special queue that was only these mid to gold level players that make up the grand majority of that player base in that top 18%, because again, right, you look at this pyramid, y'all, we go back to the pyramid. This is where, when you get above that top 18%, the grand majority of people are around here. When you start getting higher and higher, exponential decrease in the player in that player base, right? So going back, and you put him in this mythical queue, 10,000 wins. I don't think he would ever lose a match unless there was some type of grave user error. Perhaps he's tired. He was streaming 30 hours in a row. He literally fell asleep and the gens got completed, right? There is no logical manner in which, against mid-gold level players, that Momoseventh should ever lose a match playing Blight. Ever, regardless of the state of its balance, right? I mean, I guess you could really, behavior could one day balance the game in a way where he has no agency, but then no one would be playing it. You know, you take someone like Momoseventh with 2,000 wins, if they actually design the game in a way where someone of his caliber couldn't beat people of the bottom of the top 18%, no one would be playing that shit, right? So I think that this is more than could be said for the grand majority of the player base. And again, I don't even think the top 1 to 2%. We're talking diamond level players. I don't even think they could be able to achieve what he has when it comes to his Blight Winstreak. And y'all, this isn't fucking glazing. This is just recognizing a spade as a spade. Let's not be stupid, you know? Let's not have hubris here, right? Like, let's just be honest, you know? As much as people don't really like to be as overly complimentary as I might be, as it might seem that I am being right now, this is all just me trying to be objective here, okay? And that's why I'd said in the past, I don't think anyone else can achieve a similar Blight streak. And if you think I'm wrong, this is my open call for you to fucking try. Especially if you're a comp player. Because I guarantee you that the grand majority of these people that are involved in the comp DBD scene, they sure as hell have the time to attempt a Blight streak if they fucking wanted to, and if they believed that they could beat it. Or even if they achieved that they could compete or get similar numbers in their Blight streak. But why hasn't it happened? Because of the people that stream, that play comp DBD and stream, they just don't want to, right? And I would go out on a limb and say that it's not just because they don't want to. It's because they don't believe that they can either. I'm not saying that they're bad. I'm just, again, right, this is just me going out on a limb and just saying what's probably the truth that no one doesn't want to admit. The elephant in the room, right? This is the elephant in the room. The reason why you don't see anyone else with a high Blight streak is because A, they don't want to try, and B, because they don't fucking think that they can. So, Given that, again, it's never happened, it's reasonable to deduce that Momoseventh is very likely the only one capable of doing this, right? So if Momoseventh is the only one capable of doing this, again, emphasis on skill and skill disparity, not overall killer. And that is why when you look at if this is not true, you would have everything to gain if you were to attempt a Blight streak, compete with Momoseventh, or beat it. He had, what, 4,000 viewers, I think I heard at the time, when he did lose that streak. I read a comment that said that. 4,000 viewers, y'all. Momoseventh's viewers are never that high. And it's because that's how significant this streak was in the overall DVD scene. So what's stopping anyone else? Besides their own unwillingness or their own skill. Now, let's talk about the topic that's probably on the forefront of a lot of people's minds, which is the specifics of Momoseventh's streak losses. So, beginning with the first streak loss at 1,947 wins in a row, which I think was a couple of years ago. And what some people might be surprised to know is that I had insider information on some of the people who sought to end Momoseventh's Blight streaks. And, you know, in the same way, you might be just as surprised as I am to know that when I saw those posts of Momoseventh losing that streak, I recognized one of the names of those survivors in that lobby. So let me tell y'all about what I know, right? See, first, let me give you all a little bit of background. It was like 2022, 2023. I was doing a lot more with DVD content creation. The game was in a completely different state balance-wise, so I was even looking to take the game a lot more passionately and seriously. And I was actually approached by some comp players. Not very big name comp players, right? Just some players in the competitive scene. And they offered to coach me about competitive DVD, teach me the game, like, more about, you know, at a micro level, right? In the sense that, like, we would do 1v1 chases, and they weren't teaching me about Clown, but I guess you could say I was more learning with them, right? By practicing with them as really good survivors in 1v1 customs. And this meant to me, this resulted, I should say, in me becoming friends with a couple people, right? And one of these comp survivors I still kind of talk to this day, and we play games outside of Dead by Daylight. And it was one evening, this was, again, a couple years ago, while this was for the 1,947 streak. One evening while sitting in a Discord with this friend, right, from the competitive scene, and we were just playing a completely different game. We weren't playing Dead by Daylight. I don't fucking remember what the game was, y'all. It was like multiple years ago, and it really doesn't matter. But we were just hanging out, and at one moment, or at one point, this survivor who was on the team that sniped Momoseventh and ended his 1,947 streak, this survivor joins our call to recruit my friend. He's talking about how he and some other survivors are in another Discord, and they're going to attempt to snipe Momoseventh live on stream for a couple of hours. And they are looking for my friend to fill the 4th slot so that they can try to see if they can end his streak. This wasn't when it was close to 1,900. I think it was at like 1,600 wins at the time, right? I thought nothing of it. I thought it was kind of weird. I'm gonna be honest, y'all, I didn't actually think they would succeed, because when it comes to, you know, what kind of players they were by comparison, right? I wouldn't even so much call them top 0.1%, but I digress. You know, the point is I am in a call with my buddy who was literally contacted by someone on the team that did beat Momo, and he came to recruit my friend to fucking snipe him, okay? So this idea that people, I think, were saying with the 1947 streak that Momoseventh went against some random pubs or that they weren't sniped, give me a fucking break, dude. You can straight up kiss my ass. Like, I'm sorry, man, but that is just so ridiculously unbelievable to me because of what I know, okay? And the thing is, I'm willing to stand on business when it comes to this shit. Name, face, and ass at this point. Because I didn't say anything before when it happened previously, but given the circumstances with this streak and last night, this shit did kind of fucking piss me off. And that's why I'm taking the time today, making this video, sharing with y'all with what I know. And obviously, y'all, I don't have proof that this conversation took place. You think I'm just sitting in Discord playing a variety games with people that I know, and I've just got fucking Streamlabs OBS on the record? Like, no. This dude just randomly comes in, he asks question, dude says, nah, we're hanging out doing other shit, and then he leaves. You know, it's really just that simple. But I'm coming out publicly. I'm putting my whole name, face, reputation, and everything behind this claim, and I am telling y'all this fucking conversation happened. This claim is true. This shit took place, okay? So, I am 10,000% certain that Momoseventh was deliberately targeted on this first streak, because again, to me, if it looks like a duck, it's yellow, it has webbed feet, it quacks, it lives on the water, right? It's probably a fucking duck, dude. Yeah, I'm not actually in the call when the snipe is taking place. I'm not listening to them talk to each other saying, yeah, dude, we're about to snipe him right now, man. Yeah, man, you ready? Ready, press ready up now, man. Yeah, man. But I don't need that shit, okay? I don't need that level of certainty with what, especially with what I know, right? It's kind of just one of the, a really good, another good example too, right? Y'all, you walk outside in the morning and there's rain on your roof, there's rain on the grass, there's rain on your fucking driveway, there's rain on the street, your neighbor down across the lane, he's got rain on his fucking roof, his driveway. What do you think makes the most sense, right? That someone went ballistic in the middle of the night while everybody was sleeping with a garden hose and just threw water everywhere, or maybe that it rained. You know, maybe it just rained, right? That's kind of that's how what I feel like we're looking at here, again, based on the information that I know and I'm coming out publicly and I'm putting my full weight behind. But obviously, this is just the first streak, right? Anyone who says otherwise when it comes to the first streak, definitively and holistically full of shit as far as I'm concerned. But let's talk about the most recent streak last night at 1,992 wins in a row. With this one, I don't have insider information like before. In fact, I know probably about as much as everyone else. From what I can gather online, though, what is certain is that these people knew they were against the Momoseventh from as early as the player lobby, and they had enough time within that lobby to swap their builds to specifically counter them, right? So that on its own is already sus to me. It's as if they were prepared for the possibility they were going to go against him and that they were going to counter him in a way where it was basically prepared in a sense, right? Like it was coincidentally they were ready for that possibility. You get what I mean? That just seemed very suspect to me. And while there isn't a smoking gun admission that they were also attempting to end up in his lobby beforehand, but be honest, y'all, I really don't think that shit's needed here. Especially, again, with what I'd already seen in the past. Again, I think it is extremely peculiar that they knew they were in his, they were facing Momoseventh from within the lobby, and within that limited time window, they were able to swap and prepare their builds for it. To my belief, someone was very obviously checking with each lobby if they were going against him. I would not be surprised by that. Not certain of that, but I think that is very probable. And that alone, just the probability on that, when you take what I especially had witnessed beforehand with the insider information, when you then especially take the time that they had the time to swap their builds and they did so to counter them, something's not right here, gang. Someone's withholding the truth. Someone's not being honest here. And you know, I looked into this more, and one of the survivors who beat Momoseventh on the team, he ended up posting a document giving his alibi, I guess you could say. It was an attempt of an alibi, because I'm going to be honest, y'all, it wasn't really good. Talking about how, oh no, this wasn't a snipe. It wasn't deliberate. It was coincidental, and it just happened. But as I was reading this, there was one particular paragraph that really stood out to me. See, here's what he says. There have been claims that we spent hours trying to queue into him specifically in order to end his win streak. This is simply not true. Anyone familiar with how public matchmaking works in Dead by Daylight understands that getting a specific player in your lobby is not something that you can reliably force, especially without excessive and obvious repeated attempts, which are not reflected in my matchmaking history, which is basically his kind of way of saying, I prepared my matchmaking history ahead of time so you can use my matchmaking history to verify it. But continuing, this was a random encounter. This idea that this was a coordinated effort to target a specific player is misinformation. Really? Because that's exactly what people were saying with the first streak, is that it was misinformation. How interesting, especially in light of what I knew about that streak. And so here we are, right? Going back to with the first part of this paragraph, they said there have been claims we spent hours trying to cue to him specifically to end his win streak. That is exactly what they did. They did that in the first one. Anyone familiar with how it works is that you can't reliably force it. You're right, you can't reliably force it, but you can unreliably force it. You can sit there queuing into it multiple matches in a row, crossing your fucking fingers that you eventually end up in a lobby, and that could happen, right? And that does explain how they would eventually end up in this lobby, how they would eventually be prepared for it, and how they would beat him with such calculus that he didn't even get any kills. He only got a few stages. So when I read this, right, I'm over here genuinely just like the picture below. I'm kind of just like, really? Why the fuck we lying here, dude? And then I started thinking about it even further. See, something also came to mind, y'all. There actually is a way that they reliably could force their way into his matches. You see, cheating software enables one to directly insert themselves into any player's lobby of the cheater's choosing. They could have simply used cheating software to snipe the queue and nothing else, right? Because when you're talking about the 0.1 percentile, especially someone like Momoseventh with so many fucking Blight games, he knows what hits are and aren't possible. You don't need to, or especially not even you don't need to, the idea of even using cheating software becomes risky. Because once he knows that you're cheating, if you're cheating in game, he's going to invalidate the match, right? Your attempt of ending the streak becomes null and void because you gave him that ability, right? So cheating within the match is not something that I could have ever seen them doing for this reason. But even further, because of the state of the balancing, if you look at DBD in the pub environment with no perk restrictions, no item restrictions, y'all, they wouldn't have needed to cheat in the match. They could have simply used the cheating software to queue up into him. They get into his match. They bring double shoulder the burden, reassurance, brand new part, all that other shit, right? And they just win organically because the game's balance at a 1-to-1 ratio, 0.1% versus 0.1%, is so disproportionate that that's why competitive environments have such heavy restrictions on the survivor side, right? And the best part is both possibilities could have been true. They could have tried to brute force getting into his lobby, right? Because that is what happened in the first streak. They did spend hours trying to get into his lobby. Or at the very least, I can say, that's what the person who tried to recruit my friend was for that purpose, right? He did say they were going to spend a few hours trying to see if they can get into Momoseventh's lobbies, right? So they very well could have tried to do that. They could have tried to snipe him by just readying up whenever he was readying up. And you know what? Maybe when they realized that that probably wasn't going to happen, maybe someone in that 4-stack said, I'm going to spend a little bit of money. I'm going to purchase a trial or his license or whatever you want to call it of some cheating software. I'm going to use the cheating software just to get us into his lobby. And then we're just going to beat him using everything that makes Survivor so broken. And then we end the streak. It's really that simple, right? Now, again, y'all, I don't have proof that this happened, but I do have a very credible and plausible explanation for how this could have happened. And again, when you consider the effort that people have been putting on ending Momoseventh's streak, I think it is somewhat reasonable to believe that this could have happened, right? Because really think about that. When you have people saying, because again, I was there for this, they're saying, we're going to spend a few hours trying to end Momoseventh's streak. If you're willing to do that, why wouldn't you pay for cheating software if you know you're not going to get into his lobbies to ensure you would then get into his lobbies so we'd have a chance of ending it, right? It just makes all the most sense because at the end of the day, this is all about bringing Momoseventh down. This is not about pulling them up, right? In their mind, in their perspective, right, they might have thought that Momoseventh has everything to lose and they have everything to gain, but when you look at the fallout, no one is supporting these people. No one likes what these people did. Because everyone, especially within that top 0.1% community, knows that at the end of the day, they knew this, right? Going all the way back here. They knew that this is who Momoseventh is against. They knew he didn't get 2,000 wins shitting on everybody and basically challenger level player base. He's shitting on all the mid golds, maybe the low plats, maybe a couple diamonds, right? But the point being is that they understood the basis of his streak in pubs. And that's why when you look at these other players who did this, right? It really frames them in a that's why it frames them in such a negative way, because it's like, you're not making yourself look good for doing this. People don't look at the people who beat Momoseventh and say, wow, these survivors are super crazy. They brought double shoulder the burden and reassurance and they ended his streak, right? And part of the reason for that, you know, from what I understand especially, is how one of the survivors literally within the hour beforehand got fucking folded and broken by a ghoul with a 4K5 result. Literally, their whole team got destroyed, 4 kills, 5 gens remaining in an organized and limited rule set. So this whole idea that we're just going to get completely dominated on the little screen on our glass playground, right, in front of everyone else within our own sphere, and we're now just going to go beat Momoseventh with no rule sets, using everything broken under the sun on Survivor side, and it's supposed to matter? No, it doesn't matter. No one gives a shit about what you did, because it doesn't fucking mean anything. And you know, if y'all actually did believe you could do anything that mattered, you'd be attempting your own blight streaks, right? But you're fucking not, because you can't. Because at the end of the day, you're not as good. I know, crazy. Hear it coming from me, the clown main, telling all these other people that want to just snipe someone on Survivor, you're not as fucking good on Blight. And that's why you're not doing your streaks, right? You're not trying to actually beat the streak. So anyways, going forward, right? It's completely fucking unhinged to me that these people would do this, because there's really something to be said about someone that goes out of their way to just try to drag someone down. You really think about where you could be focusing that energy, right? What do I do with most of my content, y'all? I know we're doing this, and I am basically actually, for once, really making punches this time. Most of my content's educational, because I want to build other people up, right? I want to talk about shit that's positive. I'm not looking to drag other people down so I look big, right? That's what these people were looking to do. And that's what's fucking sick about it, right? And, you know, these people, Momo, and I'm sure he knows this, right? These people were never his fucking friends. And I feel for I feel for Momo about this too. Like, what, he's very young. He's 20 years old, y'all. And I know for a lot of people are like, 20 years isn't very young. Y'all, I'm in my mid-30s. It's young, y'all. I remember when I was 20 years old, not even able to drink. Time flies as you get older, but I'm sure people in their 30s will agree with me that life experience really picks up more and more and more the older you get, right? That's literally by definition how it works. And I'm in my mid-30s. I guarantee you the way I think about myself when I was 20, it's going to mirror that when I'm 50, probably mirror that when I'm 70. And that's why I say when he's 20, he's very young. And sadly, y'all, he had to learn this lesson the hard way, but it's good that he did learn it very young to begin with, right? It's important to know that not everybody who is being nice to you is actually your fucking friend. A lot of people out there are predatory. A lot of people are out there to take advantage of you. A lot of people recognize when they're beneath you. A lot of people look for opportunities to elevate themselves off of you. Almost like a stepping stone, right? And that's basically what happened here. And again, y'all, I learned this lesson myself in real life. When I was younger, I once had a job where I don't like getting into the real specifics about my personal life, because I really try to, like, for reasons, keep that separate. So, but either way, I had a job where I was getting looked at by my boss and by the person below my boss, right? I was getting looked at for a managerial position. And my peers on my level for my job, they did not like that. They very clearly, now that I really think about it in retrospect, they were jealous of me. And what they would try to do is they were trying to get me to slip up by bringing up drama voluntarily, right? So, like, I would be like, hey, what's going on? And they'd be like, dude, could you believe so-and-so did X, Y, and Z? I can't believe them. They're yada, yada, yada. And what they were hoping for is that I wouldn't say anything, right, to my own boss. I wouldn't get them in trouble. They were hoping that this was almost like we're getting more personal with each other. They're opening up. They're trusting me. They were trying to build that level of repertoire. And it worked. Later on, we went to a bar after work one day. I had a couple of drinks with him, not a crazy amount. Literally it was like a drink, right? Because it's like I had to drive home and shit like that. But we're having a drink or two. It was a rather stressful day at the job. And I wasn't being like super ballistic, but I was talking about some things I didn't like about my own superiors, right? Things that kind of took place during that work shift, etc. And the very next day I go to work, the moment I walk into the fucking door, I get pulled aside. They immediately, after we just have this conversation with the bar, y'all, again, right? Really think about that. You build up this trust with people that you work with, and then you're spending time outside of work, right? They manipulated me through all of this so that they could get me fired. They went to my boss saying I said X, Y, and Z and this and that. And this put me basically, not only was I not getting that promotion, but they didn't even feel comfortable around me, right? Which meant that if I'm not positioned for the promotion, someone else is. And that's exactly my point, is in life, you are going to run into people that are predatory, that don't care about your best interest, that are jealous of what you have done, and they don't want to see you succeed. That is who these survivors were. And that's why you could see he was so upset. He's like, I thought these people were my friends. This really fucking sucks. Yeah, it does fucking suck. But no, those people never were your friends. And I really, really feel bad for him. They purely straight up manipulated him under the guise of friendship so they could take advantage of him later. And, you can't blame Momoseventh for it, given how young that he was, right? You can only really just feel bad for him. And I guarantee you going forward, he's probably not going to make that same mistake again. But fortunately, y'all, going forward, I do think that everything's a lot more positive for Momoseventh. I don't think this was like, you could say it was a disappointing chapter, but I don't think this is a sad chapter for him. Given the circumstances by which the streak was lost, there's no doubt in my mind that hitting 2,000 wins is still possible. And I feel like for most people, let's be honest, y'all, most people would agree that it's very well still possible too. He was 8 wins away, y'all. Like 1,992 wins is essentially 2,000 wins without the dotted I's. Like, sure, it's not formally as attractive because you can't say I have a 2,000 win streak, but you can say near 2,000. Right? And when people see what you mean by near 2,000, their response to that is going to be, okay, that basically is 2,000, right? So not formally as attractive, but still very admirable. And another silver lining too is that there's still that original carrot left to chase. While I'm sure Momoseventh is probably ready to chase after another carrot, that other carrot be picking up another streak, right? He could start playing literally any other A or S tier killer, try to see how far I could push the streaks there, right? He's got this platform built off of being the top 0.1 percentile and going on long streaks in public matches. So maybe he was looking to chase another carrot, but because of what these survivors did to him, he still got that carrot, right? They stalled the win streak. They haven't taken it away from him. They've basically said, like, they pulled it back a bit and they said, keep going, right? So while the alternative of doing something else probably also gets pushed back with that, it's not as if he can't still keep pushing for the streak. And I'm really glad that he is, by the way. I heard recently he put out a post, I think, in his Discord saying that the streak's not over, job's not done. Keep it up, Momo. You got this shit. You know what I mean? I do think he can. He very well can get it, and I'm very glad to see that he's going to still keep pursuing it. Which, again, right, humorously, these survivors have unintendedly become Momoseventh's own stepping stones, even though they were looking to elevate themselves by pulling him down, right? These survivors were looking to step over him, in turn, they only lowered themselves so he can climb over them, right? And when you look at losing the streak, it's not a reflection of Momoseventh and his own skill. It's a reflection of how jealous and despicable these 4 people are. Because again, that's just the reality of the situation, right? These people were not looking to make themselves look good. They were looking to take away from Momoseventh. That's jealousy. That's despicable nature. That's sad. That's fucking pathetic, right? And at the end of the day, whatever they sought to gain from him is now Momoseventh's benefit, because Momoseventh is respected not just for his tenacity, but how he also remained composed this time against malicious adversity, because it was malicious, right? Let's really be clear about what took place here. This wasn't coincidental. I don't think with the second streak that he wasn't sniped. I absolutely think that he was. I mean, give me a fucking break, dude. See, especially just the language here, right? I don't like getting into the specifics of what I do, but my IRL bells, this is very legalese, y'all. This isn't a defense I feel like someone crafted the way this is especially structured. This wasn't a defense of this is what happened. This was a defense of plausible deniability and trying to see if I could get away with people's naivety. And you know, realistically, right? It doesn't have as much concrete to stand on, or it wouldn't have as much concrete to stand on if you didn't have me coming out and saying what absolutely fucking happened when it came to that last streak. You know, that's why I'm here today talking about this. Because here's the thing. I have a lot of passion for Momo. I don't know if I mentioned this earlier. I have a lot of passion for Momo and the work that he did with this streak. His Blight is basically like my clown. And to see other people try to take this shit away from him, to take away the project that he's been working on for the last couple of years, that shit did really fucking piss me off. So there's my thoughts on it, gang. Hope y'all appreciated what I have to say. I think that pretty much wraps up everything that really can be done there. Going back to the very beginning of the presentation, if you haven't checked out Momoseventh's stream, I highly recommend it. There's a hyperlink in the document. I'll have a link to my document like recently with all my other videos in the video description. You can also just go to twitch.tv/Momoseventh to see his stream. Really good player. Not just at Blight, by the way. I learned a good amount of M1 from watching Momoseventh's stream. And other than that, hope y'all really like this video. I don't know when my next video project's going to be. Like I said, I was working on something very in-depth with regard to MMR and those stats, which is how I was able to pull the high MMR stuff for this video so soon. And just stay tuned for that, y'all. But if y'all are interested in learning how to play Clown better, while there are areas that probably, you know, are, you could say in some ways outdated, the Clown guide when it comes to chase and micro is still very relevant. So I'll have a link to my Clown guide in the description. And although I'm not streaming as much at the moment, I'll have a link to my own Twitch in the event that you do catch me live. You can interact with me, ask me questions, etc. But lastly, if you really like this video, I'd appreciate if you like and subscribe. Not just because it helps yourself when I post, know when I post new videos, but also because it pushes my video more in the YouTube algorithm, which means I'm able to reach more people when it comes to both informing as well as educating. But other than that, I hope y'all really enjoyed this video, and I'll see y'all next time. Later, gang.